Good evening everyone, welcome back to another V8 Veterans race here on our channel. This week we're at Donnington for split number 2 of the V8 Veterans here on iRacing. We qualified 4th. We weren't exactly happy with our qualifying performance, but we are starting off in the second row of the grid, so we definitely had more time in us. We balls up our first one, had to put in a banker for the second one, so critical, good start off the line is very important here. So as the lights go green, we are away. We actually got away reasonably well here. Moves up to third, and I do have a car on the inside going into turn number 1, so I'll leave plenty of room just to make sure we don't make any contact with Jason there on the inside. But we fall in behind Paul Hayes and Travis Hunt here. The two teammates sitting first and second currently on the opening lap through the first couple of corners. So obviously the tyres are pretty cold at this point, and everybody's still trying to sort themselves out as they fall in single file, but luckily for us up the front, everybody's managed to do that successfully without any incident. So halfway around the first lap now, and we're pretty comfortable where we're at. We've got Jason behind us, only 0.2 of a second, and Travis is pretty well the same distance up in front as well, so not out of our comfort zone yet, because this is early in the race. A few people try to make opportunistic moves. I can spit it out as we go into this little left-right flip-flop here as we go down behind the pit section here at Donnington. We go downhill into this downhill hairpin section of the track, probably my least confident part of the track. And then you've got to get back on the gas relatively gingerly there, otherwise the car steps out and you find yourself all crossed up. So we're at the final quarter now, back onto the main straight to complete lap number 1, and we've got ourselves a bit of a gap to Jason behind us, but also two boys, Hayes and Hunt, out in front of Paul, a good 1.5 second gap on me through that last corner as I ran a little bit wide. But I know I've got the pace in me to go with them, but I just want to look after my tyres a little bit too, because we do have a 63 lap race here tonight. So pit strategy is very important. I did have a pit strategy plan, but based on where I was on the grid, I decided to throw that out the window and came up with plan B. So we make our way down the hill through the change of direction here, and we pulled a nice little gap on Jason behind us, just out over half a second as well. So my focus at the moment is not to allow those two guys in front of me to get any more of a gap than they do. 1.1 seconds to Travis in front now, so any more than that I'll start losing draft. So it's time to probably turn the wick up a little bit, and we'll see if we can reel these guys back in, particularly through this change of direction here. Commitment and confidence really, really important through there. Again, we make our way down to this hairpin behind the pit area. Ever so gentle on the accelerator, we make our way back up the hill. And already we are 2 laps, just about complete about 63 lap race here tonight. We do have 2 pit stops we have to make. See Jason behind us dive into the pits. He actually received a stop and go penalty for jumping the start. Stuck out of his pit box there prior to the lights going green. Very similar to what I did last week at Zolder. So that effectively takes a fair bit of pressure off from behind, and we now have Matty Parker, who's the second behind. So we don't have to worry about watching our mirrors before at the moment, or anyone diving in under brakes. All we can do is just focus on trying to catch Paul and Travis out in front. So move ahead to lap number 5 now. That gap to the guys up the front pretty well stayed stagnant over the last couple of laps. And I've also pulled that gap out to Matty Parker there, just to 1.5 seconds. These guys here have been teammates, obviously working pretty well together, and we get a pretty good tight run out of there. We've reeled that gap to the guys in front just down over half a second again, so feeling pretty comfortable about where the car is and what it's capable of doing at the moment. Again, down into the change of direction, we make a couple of car links under brakes. And Travis now only 0.2 ahead, so he was 1.3 seconds there a couple of laps to go. So you can obviously see that I'm coming to get onto the back of these guys, going through there too wide. Hurts both their drive up out of here. Matty Parker's still 1.3 seconds behind, so he's coming with me. We're going through this last corner onto the straight. They actually, two teammates make contact. It's ever so slightly, but that's just given us a bit of a opportunity to do switchback. We cross the line to start lap number 7. We are on the wrong side for turn number 1, so we roll out of it. And that little hiccup by those two boys there has allowed Matty Parker to come back into it, so he's just gained a second pretty well over the last couple of 100 metres, and he's joined this party. So what was a party of 3 now has quickly become a party of 4, and all of a sudden the direct threat from behind is now a thing. I can't really let that get the better of me, so we've got to stay focused on these two guys in front. Both of them very, very quick. Travis has won the majority of the races in our split so far this season, so no surprise to find him up the front. So lap number 9 now. Just sitting behind these guys here, we've allowed us to pull a bit more of a gap on Matty again. That's just out to over 1 second, but deja vu from a couple of laps ago. They go side by side through that hairpin again. So we're pretty confident this time they're not going to make contact. They've already made that mistake once, and they fall back into single file. Definitely trying to put a fair bit of pressure on these boys at the moment, because I don't want to allow Matty behind to catch up again. So we're right on the back of the two pink cars. Travis out in the front just runs a little bit wide off the track there, tries to come back on, gets loose and takes out his teammate. So by default on lap number 10 we inherit the race. But we find ourselves out in front at the moment. We've got Matty Parker again half a second behind, as you can see there. So right on our tail, looking for an opportunity for us to make a mistake as well. Travis and Paul managed to keep going. You just see them there in the background ever for a split second. So they lost a little bit of time, but managed to keep it going in the right direction, obviously. So lap 13 now. Matty and I are still running away with it, and then all of a sudden I just get a bit of a brake lock up through this change of direction. And as you can see, we kissed the tyre barrier there on the left-hand side. So we managed to lead for 3 or 4 laps, and then made a critical error, and that drops us way back to P7, some 10 or so seconds off the pace. But I do come back out in front of teammate Warren Davis and Roy Clark, and we are still in the top 10, and we still have a car that's relatively quick. So as disappointing as it was, it's not detrimental to the race, and we've still got a long way to go, so we can feel we can fight back to some degree. But I've really got to try and stay focused and head down and catch Paul in front. You see a couple of cars there just diving off into the pits in the background. So lap 16 now, and Paul's got in front of Todd. Todd's the driver that I had troubles with last week. When I say I had troubles, I was causing all of them. We raced at Zolder, and a mistake from my end took him out on lap number 1, and then I did again the same about 2/3 of the way through the race. Moved across without realising he was there. So at this point of the race, we're sitting P6 after a couple of pit stops have been made, but my primary focus is how I'm going to try and get past Todd without making any car contact, as I just made an absolute pelican of myself the week before at Zolder. And first to put my hand up and say I made a mistake, but see there Todd getting a little bit aggressive on the accelerator as he took away from the hairpin, got loose, and we were able to get by without too much issue. So that completes lap 16, and my primary focus is to try and get a bit of a gap on Todd, but you can see here coming around on the following lap, lap 17 here, he's still on my tail. So he decides to dive off into the pit, and we keep going for a long strategy. So not too many people haven't pitted at this point. I'm now sitting in P3 again, but that's simply due to people diving into the pits a little bit earlier than me to try and do the undercut. And that leaves Matty Parker 10 seconds down the road. Troy Sipple in second, as you can just see him disappear into the distance, and I'm sitting in third at the moment. But we are on lap 18 now, and this is really our last opportunity to get a flying lap in before we need to pit ourselves. So we come around the final corner here of lap 18, and we dive into the pits. Got a couple of drivers there managing to sneak in an extra lap in through fuel conservation. We possibly could have done it, but we would have jeopardised our lap time, I think. So into the pits we go, get our tyres and our fuel done. I'm actually opting for a full tank here at this stage. A few drivers around me went for less fuel, so they've actually got better track position at the moment. But we do come back out in what looks like P10 with a little bit of space around us. So do have a full tank of fuel on board, so we are going as long as we potentially can at this point. A little bit slower than the cars around us. Although we do have fresher rubber, we are carrying quite a bit more fuel. So lap 23 now, and back up to P8. And we've got Roy Clark, a teammate, in front of us. Just over a second down the road. Still see some of the scrapes and the damage on the left-hand side of the car from that contact with the wall on lap 13, but it doesn't seem to be affecting our top-end speed too much, and the car's still turning all right. So on that end of lap 23, down into this hairpin behind the pits, we actually get a pretty good run. Roy decides to give us the opportunity to sneak through without too many troubles there, and just gives us plenty of room. So job done there. That puts us back up to P7, and we'll see if we can tow Roy along with us for as long as we can to give him some fuel advantage and work as a team. So primarily in the past we have been running under the EMU Sim Racing banner. Over the last couple of months in the background we've been working towards a bit of a merger with the PRA boys, which realistically we've been a sister team of theirs, or they've been a sister team of ours in the same time. So this week we're unveiling a new livery, as you can see on the screen in front of us, and what was a team of 5 or 6 has quickly become a team of about 12 or 14 blokes. So lap 26 now, we're back on the rear end of Paul Hayes. He makes a little bit of a mistake through the exit of turn 1, finds himself loose, and we manage to sneak down the inside as we make our way down the hill. So that was a relatively easy move. We do run a little bit wide there on the apex, carrying a bit more speed than I anticipated. And we do have Paul only 0.2 of a second behind us. So we move along to lap number 30 now. We are approaching the halfway point of the race, and we are still in P6, but we're on the back of Warren Davis, another one of our teammates. So just over half a second in front of us again here. But with the extra fuel we're carrying, finding it pretty hard to make headway on these guys around me because they're carrying a little bit less fuel. So we sat behind Warren for a couple of laps because he wasn't actually holding us up. We had very similar speed. But lap 34 just through the right hand, and there he gets a little bit loose. We get a bit of run and hold it a little bit tighter, so we get a good run down this back straight. And again, Warren pulls off to the left hand side to give us the racing line through the change of direction there, and he ducks in behind us. Puts us back up into P number 5. So after our earlier incident, we're slowly making our way back through the field. So the next few laps we spend trying to catch down Troy, and we jump forward to lap 42 now as Troy dives into the pits, and we're in third. That relegates us back up to P2. Again, Matty Parker still leading this race 13 seconds, or 11.5 seconds down the road. So you can't even see him on our screen in car, he's that far ahead of us. But again, the chance that we took extra fuel at our first pit stop has allowed us to get into the position we're in at the moment. So lap 44 now, with still about 4 or 5 laps of fuel remaining. I decide now's a good time to get into the pits and try and undercut anyone else who might be around us, particularly Matty in front, if we can get in and out and make a little bit of gap in that 15-second margin that he has over us. Now's the time to do it. So we get let down off the jacks, we exit pit lane, and we do have a couple of cars on the racing line, so got to be pretty careful as we exit here. We saw Michael Quain and Paul Hayes, who were battling with earlier in the race, go through. Quain is a lap down after an earlier incident in the race, so he sort of moves out of our way without too much issue, so thank you Michael for that, getting out of the way. But that leaves us an opportunity to chase down Paul Hayes again, who's 0.8 of a second down the road. So by him pitting a little bit early, he did actually undercut us again. But we know now we've got enough fuel to get us home in one piece without too many issues. In fact, we're probably overfueled by about a lap and a half. So lap 47 now, making our way down the back straight through the chicane left right as we go through here. All we're trying to do at the moment is fill our, make ourselves as wide as possible and let Paul know that we're definitely here, so he's consistently checking his mirrors, applying a little bit of pressure where we can. So very similar run out of there from both Paul and myself, so I don't actually gain too much there. Get a little bit back under brakes through this last corner coming onto the straight. And that goes around to complete lap number 48. So we are getting down towards the last 15 or so laps of the race now. We're sitting currently in P6. And between the two of us, Paul and I managed to catch Troy in front as well, so we've reeled him in a little bit over the last few laps. All running quite defensive through there. We go around the outside, not necessarily trying to get the move done, but still carry as much momentum as we can. The long way around never seems to work, and in that case it doesn't as well. So it's moving around again, trying to fill Paul's mirrors with our VFS Banter Alliance Racing Commodore as we are now. As we cross the line, 53 laps complete, that leaves 10 laps to go. We're currently in P6 after starting P4 in the grid at the start of the race. We're back to down 2 positions from where we started, but after that contact with the fence at the moment, I'm actually pretty lucky to still be inside the top 10. So like 54 now through the chicane. We're going to get a pretty good run out of there. And Paul in the 111 pink car in front just lights him up, gets on the accelerator a little bit too early and has a bit of a spin. So managed to keep it off the wall. And he kept it going in the right direction, but lost about 5 seconds in the process. So that puts us right on the back of Troy Simple now, fighting for P number 5. Lap 58 we are on now, and only 5 laps to go. So going through turn number 1, we've put a bit of pressure on Troy the last couple of laps. He just drops a wheel off in the dirt and spits it sideways. You can see him off on the grass here on the left-hand side of the screen as he tries to make his way back onto the circuit. But that relegates us back up to P4 with only a handful of laps remaining. We do have Matty Park and John King some 4 seconds down the road, but there's 4 or 5 laps to go. We're going to have to be pretty lucky to make some headway on these guys. That effectively means reeling him in a second and lap. Again, across the line now, 2 laps to go, 62 of 63. And we've managed to get that gap to the 2 guys in front down to just over 2 seconds. So the guys in front weren't particularly fighting too hard, but I did notice that John's sort of struggling a little bit. At this stage of the race I thought it was his tyres, but in hindsight he was actually pretty tight on fuel. So with a lap and a half remaining, we've got that gap to John and a potential podium spot just 1.5 seconds away. So we're getting a pretty good sniff at the moment that we're in for a chance here. But it is really a matter of risk versus reward, how hard you want to push things. So I do have plenty of incident points up my sleeve to use before I get a penalty. So absolutely using every bit of the track I can, and then some on particular corners. So we make our way down through the chicane here. There's 0.8 of a second to the car in front, so we're well and truly in the draft. You can see they're just maximising these off-track penalties to try and rule that gap in as much as I can. Again, it's all about trying to put a little bit of pressure under John and see if I can get him to make a mistake. But he's a wily old driver, John, so not his first time fighting for a podium position, so he knows exactly what he has to do to bring it home. So round at the last corner to get the white flag for the penultimate lap. We have Matty Parker 3 seconds down the road, John just over a second. But again, thinking that his tyres are just about cooked. We are in full attack mode at the moment. The gap is back down to 0.9 as we make our way down the hill for the final time on lap 63 of 63. We make our way under the bridge. It's only about a 0.5 second gap to the car in front now, so I have no doubt John's watching every move I make, but by the same token he's just got to play it smart, put his car in the right spot on the track, and he should bring it home. But here we are now, less than 0.5 of a second through this right-hander onto the back straight. Again, getting on the gas too early, it actually cost me a bit of time, so that wasn't beneficial. Again, under brakes into this corner here, we're right there now, it's 0.3 of a second, 0.2. He moves across defensive when I just get a wheel caught on the grass, which drags me out onto the green slippery stuff. But John holding a very defensive line through the head change of direction there, the right hand hairpin, and myself trying to find the long way around, which earlier in the race wasn't successful, and that time proved to be no different. So final corner now, and pretty much conceded fourth place, which is where I qualified, so not disappointed, but at one point I definitely had what felt like the race under control before I managed to hit the fence. So that was 63 laps around Donnington here tonight in the V8 Veterans in our BAR, Banter Alliance Racing Holden Commodore. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment, hit the like and subscribe button to the channel if you want to see more videos. This has been just a quick brief rundown of how the race went, instead of making you sit through 63 laps, potentially an hour and 45 minutes of racing. If you do want to see the whole thing, it is uploaded on my Twitch channel. It's Fart2767, so get across there, have a look, and again, subscribe to the channel and you will be kept up to date with any racing that happens here on the iRacing server. So thank you very much for tuning in and watching, and like we say in all our videos, keep on punching, and bye for now.